Wait till it's 7:10, so it starts on an even number.
You're on. You're on. Oh, okay. I see what you're saying.
Good evening, everyone. We will call to order the Oxnard City Council Community Services, Public Safety, Housing, and Development Committee for May 23rd, 2023. We have about a 15-minute late start, or actually a little bit longer than that. I apologize, but we will get through this. Madam Clerk, if we can have the roll call and post into the agenda, please.
Member Zaragoza,
Here.
Member Madrigal,
Here.
Chair McDonald.
Here.
The agenda for this meeting was posted on the City Hall Bulletin Board on May 16th, 2023.
Thank you very much. If you would join me in saluting the flag of our nation, please. Please place your hand over your heart. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you all. That takes us to Section B, public comments on items not on the agenda. This would be the time for public comments that would be under the purview of this committee, but are not on agendized items. If you want to speak on any of the agenda items, when that item comes up, feel free to do so. Madam Clerk, I didn't see any notice about any pre-designated speakers. Do we have any speakers?
We do have one public speaker from No, I'm sorry. No, we do not have any speakers virtually or in person for this item.
Excellent, thank you very much. Takes us to the consent agenda. One item on there, City Clerk Department. Approval of the minutes. The recommendation is that the Community Services, Public Safety, Housing and Development Committee approve the minutes of the April 25th, 2023 meeting, regular meeting as presented. Did members have an opportunity to read the minutes?
Yes, sir.
If you're okay with them, then a motion would be in order.
Move to approve.
Second.
Madam Clerk, we have a motion and a second. Please vote.
Thank you. Motion carries 3-0.
Thank you very much. That takes us to item D. First one is Cultural and Community Services Department. Subject is an agreement with the Oxnard School District for the operation of after-school education and safety grant. Recommendation is that the Community Services, Public Safety, Housing and Economic Development Committee recommend that the City Council approve and authorize the mayor to execute an agreement, which is number A, Adam 8318, with the Oxnard School District, OSD, for the city to receive an amount not to exceed $4,680,000 to operate the after-school education and safety program, with a city match of $130,000 of in-kind services. And there was a pre-recorded message pursuant to Measure M, or presentation pursuant to Measure M on the city's YouTube channel. And staff is here. Mr. Harrison, if committee members have any questions or comments about this program there.
Yeah, Mr. Harrison, how many schools are involved in this in the program?
So, Mr. Mayor, council members, there are 20 schools that are.
20 schools.
Yes.
Okay, and we have our staff does this the work after school program.
Yes, correct. We do it, and we've had this relationship with the school district for 20 years now, and our staff has been involved and are involved at all 20 schools.
And we have, I think the Mayor Pro Tem mentioned that we have $130,000 of in-kind services. So what would that be?
So that would be use of our facilities, such as our offices, things like that. We also, some of the gym time that we have for some of the teams, we utilize that.
Thank you. I think it's a good program, you know, that's 20 schools is quite a few schools. And how many children are involved, potentially?
Ooh, it was, I think about 2,000, if I'm correct. Yep,
About 2,000. Very significant, you know. Thank you.
Member Montreal, any comments or questions?
Yeah, just quickly, I know the importance of this. I actually did not, or when I was a kid at the Oxnard School District, I did the after-school program. It wasn't through the city, it was through the Boys and Girls Club back then. But I know the importance of this, just simply meeting new people that you actually go to school with, meeting young adults who end up becoming mentors. And, you know, years later, I still remember my coach slash mentor, who's now a sheriff at, for the county, and all the good things he did there, not only coaching us for baseball, but also basketball. And I know the importance of this, and I had a niece who was a part of the after-school program, and I know how much a particular individual meant to her because, you know, they shared the same taste in fashion. And I currently have a nephew who's in the after-school program, and I don't think he likes it as much, but, you know, it's something for him to do. During this time, I did see his artwork recently when I went to Frank Middle School when they had their art display. So I did see his work there. And I know that, you know, it takes a special someone to take on this responsibility, the job. And I know that as with everything, there's been kind of like positions are open, and it's been, I'm sure, tough to get everyone, you know, meeting the staff needs for these students. And so overall, like, I just want to say a great job by everyone involved. And even though it may not be ideal with the lack of employees, but I know that they do it for a good cause, and they do it with a good heart to help out the kids. So thank you.
Thank you.
Now, does City Corps still actively participate in this program?
So Mayor Pro Tem, City Corps participates, but they participate in the Hueneme After School program. So there's another 10 schools in the Hueneme district that we handle, but that's not this particular contract.
Okay. And the only reason I ask is I think it's great to show our young people that there are other paths to take in life other than, you know, working for a city or doing whatever. And those are all noble pursuits, but these are our future. The young kids that we're training and working with are going to be the next politicians, leaders of our community. So I think it's important that we do this. I fully support this program. I think it's just a wonderful exercise, and I would move the recommended action.
Second.
Chair McDonald, we have.
Oh, I'm sorry. Do we have any speakers?
We have no speakers virtually or in person for this item.
See, I knew that telepathically, but I didn't say anything, so I apologize. Thank you very much. And Councilmember, you were the second?
Yes, I'll second.
Madam Clerk, I made the motion, and Member Madrigal was the second. Vote, please.
Thank you. Motion carries 3-0.
Okay, it takes us to item number 2, City Manager Department, and subject is approval of the fiscal year 2023-24 Special Events Support Program events and budget. The recommendation is that the Community Services, Public Safety, Housing, and Development Committee recommend that City Council, 1, approve the list of recommended events for the Special Events Support Program in fiscal year 23-24. 2, approve minor changes to the Special Events Support Program policy. And 3, allocate $100,000 towards the Special Events Support Program in fiscal year 23-24 budget. Pursuant to Measure M, there was a pre-recorded presentation on the city's YouTube channel, and We have staff here to answer any questions if committee members have any.
Yeah, Samantha, can you give us a little rundown on what the special events are?
The list of special events or the program itself?
Well, let me see, do we have both?
So there are 25, or I'll start with actually the program itself. So the program was adopted last year by council. The intention is to provide a subsidy to help reduce city service costs for certain special events, those that are free and open to the public, encourage community participation, and that align with a major recognized holiday. And there's different levels of support based on the type of event. So if it's a purely ceremonial event, that would receive 100% subsidy toward the city service fees. If it's a festival event or there's an entertainment element, then that would receive 50% subsidy toward their city service fees. And there are a total of 25 events this year. That includes city organized events and Category A and Category B events.
And that kind of gives us a little organization prior to this type of special events, where people will come up, and wanting subsidies from the city and so forth and so forth. But this kind of gives us a little structure.
That's correct. There was no formal policy in place that allowed for a discount or waiver of any fees before this was adopted last year.
Thank you, thank you.
Good. Councilmember Madrigal, any questions or comments?
No comments at this time.
Okay, thank you. My only question was going to be about the A and B categories, but you covered that, so thank you very much.
Efficient.
What would be the pleasure of the committee?
Motion to
Chair
approve.
McDonald, excuse
Oh, I'm
me.
sorry. Telepathically, I know there's no one there, but I guess I should ask publicly just to make sure.
Okay, yeah, we have no speakers virtually or in person for this item.
There used to be a guy on TV at night, Johnny Carson, the great Carmack. I'm dating myself now.
Motion to approve this item. Thank you, Samantha.
Second.
Second.
Madam Clerk, we have a motion by the mayor, a second by Member Madrigal. Please vote.
Thank you. Motion carries 3-0.
Okay, that takes us to item number 3, Community Development Department. Subject is compliance fee study. Council consideration of update to alcohol compliance fee and adoption of new compliance fees for tobacco, firearms, and cannabis businesses. Oh my gosh, and we have a speaker too. I don't even have to use telepathy on this one. Okay, and adopt compliance fees to be imposed on the identified businesses. Pursuant to Measure M, there was a pre-recorded, no, I'm sorry. Presentation will be held live upon consultant's request, so let's go with the consultant's presentation first, and then we'll go from there.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem, council members. I just wanted to quickly introduce the team, and then we'll turn the presentation over to the Harris and Associates team. So first, I wanted to introduce Matt Simpkins to my right. He is the management analyst who's assisting in running the cannabis program and doing an excellent job in moving the permits forward and addressing issues that come up periodically. I also wanted to mention real quickly Hita Mosesman, who is the vice president with Harris and Associates, and she'll be doing a portion of the presentation, as well as Kelly Morgan, who's a project manager with Harris and Associates and who's been one of the leads on the compliance study before you this evening. And then finally, I just wanted to give a thanks to the overall city team that's behind me. They're a large part of this brain trust, in addition to the consultant who has brought forward staff hours and worked collaboratively to bring this document forward. So this really reflects a team effort. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Hita or Kelly, whoever's going first. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathleen. Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem and members of the committee. My name is Hita Mosesman. As Kathleen said, I'm Vice President of Community Development and Housing at Harris and Associates, and I'm joined by Kelly Morgan, Project Manager on our team, who was very instrumental in this study. I did want to say I will be completing the presentation tonight solo, as Kelly's developed quite a bit of a cough, so we thought it might go a little bit smoother if we had me provide the presentation. So we'll jump right into it. So Harris was retained by the city to prepare a compliance fee study for compliance and enforcement activities for 4 business types in the city. And those are alcohol, tobacco, cannabis, and firearms sales and ranges. The city currently does have a compliance fee for alcohol, however, does not have compliance fees for the other 3 types of businesses. And when I say a compliance fee, that's basically a fee to recover costs for compliance to the city. So it's basically recovering those costs in alignment with city council goals in that arena. And next slide. So the methodology that we utilized in order to prepare the study and estimate the costs associated with compliance activities, again, as I mentioned, consistent with the city's financial management policies to specifically recover direct and indirect costs or staff time and third-party expenses incurred by the city to undertake activities for compliance. And that would include these businesses. The costs and expenses that were examined. So we looked at what it cost the city to provide these regulatory activities. Those included staff time in terms of hours by position required for all compliance related tasks according to current codes. And those would include things like permit application review, inspections, investigations, and enforcement. We also applied an inflator based on the Consumer Price Index, and we took a 3-year average of what the Consumer Price Index, as published by the State Board of Equalization at the state level, and we applied an inflator of 4.2% to those costs to reflect going forward increases in costs. We also looked into costs for third-party contracts, where those types of contracts would be required through compliance activities. And next slide, please. The city data that we looked at included salary information, including benefits and all staff costs. We took a mid-range number from the city's current, salary and cost information. We looked at compliance and inspection fees in terms of the worksheet that the city had that was prepared in July of 2021 and did apply a cost inflator to that to reflect current costs now. We used the city's interactive financial reporting tool that we access through the city's website. We looked at notices to current and future alcohol retailers, the city codes and ordinances and resolutions, the planning division fee schedule, the current city budget that reflects actuals, and also looked at a 2018 cost of services study. And next slide, thank you. We conducted staff interviews as well with various departments at the city, including community development, finance, human resources, the city attorney's office, and the police department. And we were trying to track through those interviews those activities and tasks related to compliance, those staff persons who complete these compliance activities, the number of hours that it takes per year or per business for those staff, the expenses related to compliance activities, and then looking at, as I said before, third-party contracts where those might be required, where a subject matter expert may need to come in. The number of businesses assumed in the study is displayed on this slide. So we assumed 265 alcohol businesses, 28 cannabis businesses, and of those 28, and this is in line with the city's current codes and requirements, 16 retail businesses, 8 manufacturing, 1 testing, and 3 distribution. We assumed 4 firearms retailers and 158 retailers selling tobacco. So in terms of the firearm compliance research and analysis that we conducted, we determined that the sole sort of cost for compliance activity had to do with annual permit inspections for these types of businesses. Also, another piece of the cost was the cost to prepare this study, which is the city is allowed to recoup, again, their costs for compliance. So a piece, a pro rata piece of the cost of the study has been applied to compliance fees that you'll see on these subsequent slides as well. So that really gives us, those two pieces give us the total compliance and enforcement costs for firearms for permit renewal, and we'll go over what those specific fees are in a subsequent slide. And here's that slide. So there, as this table shows, there is currently not an existing fee for firearms retailers. We did assume there are 4 businesses in the city that would be selling firearms potentially. And then we looked at a 3-year period and calculated the amount of staff time and other costs that would be related to compliance activities. And that cost was $452 per retailer. And so you take 452 times 4 businesses, and that's $1,808 for next fiscal year 23-24. You'll see that the fee does go up in 24-25 and 25-26. That's based on the CPI inflator that we assumed. This takes into account increase in staff salaries, increase in costs that are basically reflective of inflation. And next slide, please.
Mr. Chair, question.
Mayor.
So that CPI was 4.2, is that what you're looking at for 2025?
Yes, we applied a 4.2% CPI each year over the 3 years, and that's a 3-year average from the previous 3 years. Correct, yes.
Thank you.
Sure. In terms of the alcohol compliance fee, this had more component parts than the firearms fee. There are more regulatory activities involved here, and those things would be the license oversight for noncompliance, police investigation for noncompliance, the deployment and oversight of alcohol education programs, alcohol impact inspections, responsible beverage service training, and compliance study cost. As I mentioned before, a pro rata piece of the cost is included in the regulatory fee as it is a cost of compliance. And so all of these component pieces make up the compliance and enforcement costs that go into the permit renewal fee that you'll see on the next slide. So this slide does reflect the existing fee all the way to the left of $265 per business. We logged 265 alcohol businesses. So for 2023-24, based on all those component pieces that we went over in the previous slide, this equates to $385 per business. So the fee does go up somewhat, but that's based on looking at what the city's current costs are for compliance. Multiplying $385 times 265 businesses in the city equates to about $102,000 of fee revenue in fiscal year 23-24. And as you can see, similarly, that 4.2 CPI inflator is applied to 24-25 and 25-26. So there is somewhat of an increase over the 3 years. And again, that is to reflect inflation and increasing costs. We wanted to review a little bit about the existing cannabis finance structure in the city. There was a business tax for cannabis that was approved by the voters of the city in 2018. This tax is similar to your transit occupancy tax, or TOT. And in the case of TOT, it imposes a tax on visitors to the city staying in hotels or other types of vacation rentals rather than residents of the city. And this table on this slide basically presents what taxes were voted in 2018, the tax rates that were voted in, anywhere from 2.5 to 6%, depending on the type of business. There's a community benefit tax of 1% and a one-time payment that varies depending on the type of business, retail through manufacturing. And next slide. So as I mentioned in a previous slide, your city code allows for 4 different categories of cannabis businesses: retail, manufacturing, testing, and distribution. And it does limit the total number of permits by business category as well. And you do not currently permit cultivation in the city. And then we have the number of businesses assumed for the study: 16 retail, 8 manufacturing, 1 testing, and 3 distribution. The fee for cannabis compliance costs also has many component parts. There's the cannabis renewal application. This is reviewed by the city manager and legal counsel. Quarterly inspections at the business and compliance checks. There is a fee for police live scan services. There is also a fee for extended background review through the police department. Again, a small pro rata piece for the compliance study, the cost of preparing that study. And then there are some optional activities and expenses that are not reflected in the fee, such as an annual audit of the cannabis businesses to verify the revenue and processing payments received from the different businesses. All of these factors, except for the optional, which are sort of a maybe but are not included in the fee, all of these factors go in to total the cost for compliance and enforcement for these types of businesses. And here on this slide, you see the estimated fees associated with this. You can see the fee is the same for each business. And we have a fee of $5,081 for each business's piece of what it costs to regulate and do compliance activities associated with this business. Given the number of businesses, and they vary by type, we estimate a total amount of revenue of $142,000 in fiscal year 23-24. And then it goes up according to that CPI inflator in 24-25 and 25-26. And tobacco compliance fees, the component parts going into this calculation of total expenses and costs to the city are annual permit compliance review, police decoy and inspections, prosecuting tobacco retailers, and a piece of the compliance study cost, and a declaration of nuisance cost as well. And that all goes into total all the expenses associated with compliance for this business type. And the related fee, we have 158 businesses in the city. The recommended fee is $252, which would generate approximately $39,851 to cover the city's costs for regulating these businesses. Again, with the CPI inflator that would kick in for fiscal year 24-25 and fiscal year 25-26. So all of those fees that we just reviewed are summarized in this table, so you can sort of look at them side by side. Again, the city currently does charge an alcohol compliance fee of $265. The analysis and calculations that we did estimated that fee is more appropriately $385 per business based on current costs. And then cannabis permit renewals are $5,081 per business. We have firearms at $452 and tobacco at $252 per business. I did want to, in addition to showing you the total recommended annual fee per business per year, I did want to call your attention to the last 2 columns of this table that's titled Annual Fees, Businesses, Other California Cities. So what we did is we looked at other cities in Southern California to see what are their compliance fees, what do those look like? And we'll go over exactly which cities those are, but a few of them are Port Hueneme, Goleta, Santa Barbara, Pasadena, Long Beach, Fremont, Carpinteria. So you can see the alcohol compliance fees, they range anywhere from $100 to $5,000 per business. Cannabis ranges anywhere from 298, and I'll show you on a subsequent slide which cities charge which fees, but they go all the way up to $12,530 per business. Firearms range from $111 to $284, and tobacco ranges from $30 per business to $600 per business. So a pretty wide range for most of these business types. And you can see that the fees that are shown in this table tend to be on the low end or the mid-range, with the exception of the firearms permit renewal. But this is simply based on the costs that were calculated in terms of what the city has to complete in order to regulate and make sure that there's compliance. And here's that table that shows what cities charge what fees. So you can see the proposed fees for your city are in the top row there that are highlighted in yellow. And then you can see that, you know, not only Goleta charges fees for every single business type. The other cities charge for some, but maybe not all. Ventura charges for everything except firearms. But you can see sort of the wide range where you have, for example, Goleta charging over $12,000 for cannabis businesses per business. You've got, you know, Santa Cruz having a formula, but on the high end, over $2,000 for alcohol compliance. And you see the city of Ventura as well for alcohol compliance, much larger at $1,700, but somewhat smaller at $298, which again, the timing of when these fees were adopted. Some cities adopt fees and maybe don't update them very often to reflect the current cost of doing the regulation and compliance. And then some of these are more recent. So I think that's why you see a wide range here. So in terms of, you know, the process followed outside of calculating the costs and preparing the study, there was quite a bit of engagement done. The affected businesses, there were meetings with the affected businesses in late 2021. The study did take some time to complete to make sure we had all of the right data and all of the most updated data. There were no significant input or concerns reported through that outreach. Fees increased since late 2021 due to the CPI, as we discussed, and city contracts and staff hourly rate increases as well. You know, the substantial inflation that's been experienced over the last couple of years is probably not a secret to most people, and that also does affect this study and those amounts. The firearm renewal fee is higher compared to other jurisdictions, but through our analysis, it is what it costs to complete those compliance activities. All other fees range are within a range, a high and a low, where the city is in between those two numbers. So the city is within the range of normal for the majority of the fees. The West Ventura County Business Alliance commented on the cannabis fees only through the outreach process, and commented on the impact to business viability as well. In terms of the financial impact or the fiscal impact of the fees adopting or not, if the city decides not to adopt these fees, it would be a revenue loss of over $680,000 over a 3-year period. So that would be all of the fees that we discussed, 2023-24 through 25-26, and it would prevent the city from being able to recover the costs that are actually being incurred to regulate these businesses. So therefore, as your staff report reflects, the Community Services, Public Safety, Housing and Development Committee it's recommended that the City Council approve, or that you approve, the compliance fee study and proposed fees for the stated businesses.
Thank you very much. Ms. Mallory, did you say you had another presentation to go through? No? What I'd like to do is go to the speaker first. I'm going to do my great Carmack impression here and put it to my forehead. Unfortunately, the mayor and I are the only ones old enough to remember the great Carmack. But, and I will call Miss Nancy Lindholm from the Western Ventura County Business Alliance.
And I am not going to comment on any of those things you just said that I certainly remember.
Well, I know they're going to go home and Google it later. It goes, who's great Carmack?
Definitely. And who's Johnny Carson?
Who's Johnny Carson?
Good evening, Chair McDonald and Mayor, Councilmember Madrigal, Nancy Lindholm, CEO of the West Ventura County Business Alliance. So before I start with my comments opposed to this, I really would like to thank Kathleen Mallory. She spent a lot of time with our committee, our group that was looking at this. We had 3, 4, 5 meetings maybe. She took some of our feedback that we gave her, incorporated into. However, unfortunately, we can't support the proposed compliance fees, particularly the cannabis industry fees. As I understand, the approved cannabis, the dispensaries have paid or will pay an application fee, rent to hold their space. I know that doesn't go to the city. That's been 2+ years of paying rent without their business open. Permit fees, building fees, a business tax certificate, the cannabis business tax, $250,000 as a community benefit payment, annual community benefit payments of 1% of their gross income, and annual audit fees estimated to be between $7,500 and $15,000. These items obviously do not include the costs to build their locations, their inventory, or their operational costs, just to name a few. And these businesses are still competing with the black market. The WVCBA is concerned that adding compliance fees is, again, setting them up for failure. On slide 19, I think it was 18 of the presentation, compared Oxnard's proposed fees to the other 5 communities from the Central Coast to Orange County. And I guess when I looked at it lately, are these the only communities where cannabis dispensaries that are assessing compliance fees? And I realize that slide 19 from the presentation also says the city's general fund could be shorted nearly $700,000 without the compliance fees, but I believe that's over 3 years figure. And my question is, what will the shortfall be if these cannabis businesses go out of business and there is no revenue from them? So on another note, I just have a kind of an issue with the concept of compliance fees. I feel like they're kind of like the IRS wants to charge me something, a fee, because they know I'm going to cheat on my taxes. So I just, anyway, thank you for considering my remarks.
Thank you very much. Madam Clerk, do we have any other speakers?
Chair McDonald, we have no additional speakers virtually or in person for this item.
Okay, thank you. I'm 1 for 3 in remembering something tonight, so I'm feeling pretty proud of myself all of a sudden. Do the committee members have any questions or comments? Mayor?
Yeah, first of all, I want to thank the committee and our consultant for the study. I think it's pretty comprehensive. It seems to me like we're probably in the middle of the road with the compliance fees compared to other cities, you know. And I think, you know, and I believe that we need to look into tobacco sales, into firearms sales, and to make sure that the compliances are happening. And it costs money to do that. It costs money to go on and send, for example, on the tobacco, you have to send a decoy and to make sure that the businesses are making sure that they follow the rules by checking the potential legal ages, you know, for the sales of those items. But I thought, who was the $12,000 fee? I can't remember. Was that Wanimi? Who was that? that's pretty high there too, you know, so is that right, Mallory?
Yes, Mayor, that's the compliance fee for Goleta, and I will also point out that is not inclusive of any annual audit that might be required by the city of Goleta.
Yeah, so I understand, you know, that we don't want to add any more taxes or to our business, but I think that it's important that we have compliance from all those, whether it's of tobacco, firearms, cannabis businesses and so forth. I think it's important that we follow through on those items.
Okay.
Thank you, sir. Mhm.
Thank you. Member Madrigal, any questions or comments?
Thank you for the presentation. Looking at comparable fees all throughout, obviously, it's a wide range in all of these different categories. One thing, I know it was kind of a little bit off topic, but I think it's still, if it's not, then just please let me know. How many of the cannabis businesses have opened in the city?
Councilmember, Mayor Pro Tem, we have 2 open right now we're expecting, is it 3 or 4? 4 coming up very, very, very soon.
Okay, yeah, I was speaking of I think it's 2 to 4, whatever. Some of those businesses were supposed to have been open by now, right?
That's correct, Councilmember.
Okay. Thank you very much.
I guess in looking at this and trying to balance this in my own mind, and I think there are probably going to be a couple of cannabis businesses that don't make it to the opening day, and I don't think the fees that we're looking at are going to be the major downfall for that failure, but I'm guessing at that point. But I know the committee before us, which took up a lot of our time, that's okay, Mayor. It was the Finance and Governance Committee, and one of the things that they're tasked with is making recommendations to the council of how do we work as a city to make sure we're, providing good service and we're able to afford to provide that good service. And sadly, one of those ways is through the imposition of fees. And, it's kind of a double-edged sword. Maybe we don't charge the fees, but then we're under the gun to find another source of revenue, because the complaints from the public a lot of times are public safety is a bit expensive, and they are, but public safety are the only 2 operations that run 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. And after 9 o'clock at night, if you call 911, you're going to end up with one of 2 people, a police officer or a firefighter. Those are expensive shops to run. And so we have to look at being as cost effective as possible without breaking the bank, so to speak. And while it's not pleasant, I think it's a challenge that we may have to accept in terms of generating some revenue. And when you look at the overall revenue that we're going to generate, it's not a gold mine by any stretch of the imagination. It's enough to keep us moving forward and be consistent. I think, and some of these businesses are going to be more labor intensive on the public safety side than others. We have problematic alcohol businesses throughout the city. And for a long time, you would see a licensee on a problematic liquor license do what we call a straw transfer, where they take it out of the original name, put it into a partner's name, and it resets the clock and starts everything all over again. Mm-hmm. Well, that doesn't necessarily cure the problem of the alcohol establishment. It just wipes the slate clean. And I would hope that's not still going on, but I don't know. I've been out of the business for a few years. But these are things that we have to look at in terms of a city. And I think the other important thing is, how do we ensure that these types of businesses, which sometimes are controversial depending on which neighborhood they're in, are not a detriment to the health, safety, and welfare of our community, or the quiet enjoyment of property rights and everything else. So, and we've had the same discussion with short-term rentals, where there's a fee because they can be problematic too. And I know that's a little bit off topic, but it's the same concept of, we know certain types of businesses are probably going to require more of our services than other types of businesses. So I think we need to be cognizant of that. And certainly if CPI which I doubt will ever happen, but if CPI goes down, there could be a savings to that. Who knows? I wish I had a crystal ball and could tell you what's going to happen 20 years down the road, but I can't. So while I'm not a huge fan of these fees, I think they're a necessary element of these businesses moving forward and the city moving forward and providing the best service possible for our residents, making sure that they're as well taken care of as possible. So that being said, what's the pleasure of the committee?
I move approval.
I'll second.
Okay, Madam Clerk, we have a motion by Mayor Zaragoza, second by Member Madrigal. Please vote.
Motion carries 3-0.
Thank you very much. That takes us to item number E, items for future agendas. Do either committee member have items for future agendas?
Not at this time.
No.
No, none? With that, we will give back staff some of the time that the other committee ate up on them, and we will call this meeting adjourned. Thank you all.